Hey guys, Johnny here with Rocket Tech. Today we are going to do, this is just the second part of soldering an S3 charging port. I have already desoldered the charging port. This is the original charging port if you would like to see. And what I did was I just took flux, which I use an MG Chemicals flux right here. Then I took low melt solder right here. And first of all, I flipped this board over so I could get to the bottom four sides of these legs on the S3 charging port. Put a little bit of flux on it, right here, here, and here, but on the bottom side. And then I take my low melt and put a little bit on my solder tip and hold it in each of the areas so that the low melt kind of goes throughout and mixes with the old solder, so it's much easier to come off. You're not pulling up any pads or anything like that. And then on the backhand side, I flip it back over. I put it in my little rig right here, which I'll put a link to the bottom down on this little jig that I use. I get it from Amazon. And then I'll take more flux, put flux all the way across the back side here against all the different pins that are on here. I think there's 5, 8, I think there's 10 pins across the backhand side. Then I take the low melt solder, I'll put a little bit on here, and I'll mix that so that it goes on top of all of those. Then I just take a heat gun and heat it up only to about 250 degrees Celsius. It doesn't have to be too hot, nothing like actually melting the solder that would originally come here. And by doing that and mixing the low melt solder with the original solder, I'm really easily able to pull this charging port up without any kind of issue, any kind of damage. It also makes it easier when you're going to clean out the 4 actual peg legs of the S3. And what I do is at that point I'm just going to take, because once you pull this off, you're going to have extra low melt solder here across the backside on all the pads, and you're going to have it filled up in these holes right here. You need to get all that out because when you solder your new port, you don't really want to have that in there because it's not as strong as the solder that you would like to be using. It just helps you pull it up. So all I do is take a little bit of flux, put it right here, right here, right here. This is after taking the port up. Then you're going to take this, lay it over top of it, and then just hold it down in each area, and it's going to suck right up into your wick. I use a Chemtronics wick. I'll put the link down below so you guys can check that out, and then just basically clean off all these pads. From this point on, I'm going to show you exactly how I put the new port down. So as you can see, I have already cleaned off all the pads. Right now what I'm going to do is take a little bit of alcohol and a toothbrush and just clean off what I've done so I can get off some of that flux that's kind of building up there. It gets kind of sticky and you want to kind of start fresh when you put this back down. So you guys can probably see that it's getting a little bit shinier, giving us a nice base to work with. I'll take my heat gun just to dry off the alcohol that I put on there real quick. It doesn't take much heat, it just takes a second. You can use a hair dryer to do that portion of it. I'm using a rework station. I'm using an Xtronic 9000. I'll put that link down below also so you guys can check out what station I'm using. For soldering station, I am using a Hakko FM202 with the FM 2023 tweezers. Amazing tweezers, much easier to do smaller charging ports like this. Kindle Fire charging ports, you can kind of use a big soldering iron. You don't need the tweezers as much, but on an S3 it is much better to have a smaller set of tweezer irons. So what I'm going to do now is take this port, lay that down in there. I'm going to take a little bit of flux, put that all the way around each side, turn on my tweezers, get my solder over here, using some Kester solder. I'll put a link down below on the exact solder that I'm using. Alright. Go ahead and melt this or liquefy this flux a little bit so I can see better under the microscope. And then I'm just going to go pin by pin. Take another pair of tweezers just to hold this down while I'm doing it at first. Alright, I need to re-put some solder on here. I think I had some gunk there on the tips. Was not wanting to go down. Alright, let's try this again. is not wanting to go down on me. There we go. I'm just going pin by pin. This is one of the reasons the tweezers are really good, because you can actually squeeze the pins on the back of these right in between the tweezers, and it creates a nice solder for sure. Lift this up so I can make sure they're all good. And everything looks good. Go through and check these real quick just to make sure none of them are moving. Alright, good to go. They're all soldered well. Now what I'm going to do is take it out of my jig. Go ahead and flip this over. Take a little bit of flux here, put some right on each of the pins on the bottom side, or each of the pegs. Take some more solder. And need a little bit more solder. Alright, so that's good to go. Now I'm just going to take some alcohol, scrub that off. You want to get all that flux off there that's gets kind of like tarry. Go ahead and clean that off. You definitely remember, you got to make sure that you cover this mic up, because if you don't and you get any alcohol in that mic, 9 times out of 10 you're going to have to be replacing that mic, which isn't a difficult thing to do. I do have another video on it, but it is something to remember. Alright, and that's it. That is a complete S3 charging port video. Well, not complete, it's basically halfway there, but I did show you guys what to do at the beginning. I do have a couple other S3 charging port videos that do show the complete process. So if you have any questions, I'll put some links down to those videos in the comments area. And please ask any questions that you may have. I'm more than willing to help you guys do what you need to do and succeed. Take care. Thank you so much. Have a great day.